We continue our understanding of induced transition. As already mentioned, a destructive pendulum can be accepted in different ways, both by supporting it and by rejecting it. The latter is perhaps even more dangerous, as the desire to avoid a collision with the pendulum creates excessive potential, which is a catalyst for induced transition. Now everyone, or almost everyone, is afraid of losing their jobs. Induced street crossing is very complicated. It all starts small and is quite harmless. This may be a first weak signal. You have heard through the grapevine that things at your company are not going as well as they used to. Or one of your acquaintances has lost their job. Or there are rumors that staff reductions are planned somewhere. Or something like that. On a subconscious level, without you noticing, a red light has come on. This is followed by another sign. For example, inflation has gone up the hill. This is already alarming you, by the way, those around you too. People start talking, and the pendulum of unemployment gets its boost of energy. There is already news about fluctuations on the stock market. The general tension is rising. Anxiety quickly gives way to anxiety and then turns into fear. You are already generating energy with force and strength at the frequency of the lifeline. Where you are out of work, when you are afraid of being fired, you can think about it as clearly as if you had hung a sign on your chest saying, "I can be fired." If you think you can hide this fear, you are mistaken. Fleeting gestures and nuances of intonation in your voice sometimes speak louder than words. Once you lose your self-confidence, you are no longer as effective as you used to be. What used to come easily no longer sticks. In communication with employees, tension arises. They themselves are in the same position. You transfer your nervousness to your family, and there, instead of support, they also accuse you. That's it, stress develops, and you are no longer an employee. You have a sign saying, "Ready to quit," hanging on you. The reason for the fear of being fired lies in the guilt that burns or smolders with a bright fire in your subconscious. Who gets fired first? The worst. If you allowed yourself to think that you might be worse than others, then you have blacklisted yourself. Let go of your guilt. Allow yourself the luxury of being yourself. If that doesn't work, start the process of looking for another job. The excess potential of experience dissipates with action. Some people start looking for a new job as soon as they get a job, and rightly so. They do not intend to change jobs immediately, but they have learned well that it is a good idea to always have backups. Insurance will give you peace of mind and confidence, and therefore the effect of balanced forces will not affect you. The epidemic is also an induced transition. You probably think that this no longer exists. There can be no lifeline there. A person gets sick simply because they are infected, and you would be right, but only in that the person has allowed themselves to be infected. I do not mean that the patient should have walked around with a gauze bandage. It would not have saved them. Don't believe me? Well, purely speculatively. I can't prove it, as in fact, everything discussed in this book. But you won't wear a gauze bandage during a flu epidemic to control it either. So I'll just say what I know, and it's up to you to believe it or not. So we reveal the medical history. The cause of the disease is your voluntary consent to participate in the game called Epidemic. It all starts with rumors that an epidemic of, say, flu is already raging somewhere. All normal people know that flu is easily transmitted through airborne droplets. So you, like any normal person, fully accept the idea that this can happen to you too. A film immediately plays in my head. You have a fever, you sneeze and cough. From this moment on, you are already in the game, because you radiate the energy of thoughts at the frequency of a destructive pendulum. Unconsciously, you are already looking for confirmation that an epidemic is coming, and your attention begins to work selectively. You encounter people sneezing. They are always there, just before you paid no attention to them. At work and at home, from time to time someone brings up a conversation on this topic. Your assumption that an epidemic is approaching finds new confirmation, even if you are not specifically looking for confirmation. And this topic does not really bother you. It just happens somehow on its own. If you tune into the frequency of the destructive pendulum, From the very beginning of the game, your attachment to it will become stronger, regardless of your conscious participation. Well, if you have no aversion to getting sick or are in a bad mood, then you are already the most active adherent of the pendulum. Or no, you decided not to get sick and were inspired by the fact that you are absolutely healthy and will not get sick. It will not work. You think about illness, so you radiate with the frequency of illness. The direction of thought for or against does not matter. In other words, if you are trying to convince yourself that you will not get sick, then you initially admit this possibility, and no persuasion will help. Words spoken aloud are just a shake of air. Words to oneself are nothing at all. And faith is a powerful energy even if you cannot hear it. You will not be saved even if you rush to get vaccinated. You will get sick one way or another anyway. The first symptom of the disease presents you with a choice. Will you get sick in the end or not? Resist weakly and resign yourself to the disease. This makes the final correction in your radiation and moves you towards the lifeline, where the disease is in full swing. The induced change began from the moment you accepted the pendulum. If you really don't give a damn about this epidemic, there will be no transition. Or if you are on holiday, do not communicate with anyone. Do not listen to the news, and do not know anything about the epidemic. The pendulum will not touch you. It will simply fall within you, as if into a vacuum. Have you ever wondered why doctors do not get infected by their patients? Many even work boldly without bandages. This is not because they are getting vaccinated. You cannot get used to all diseases. The fact is that doctors are also actively playing the pendulum game of disease, but their role is completely different. By analogy, observe flight attendants on airplanes. These good fairies strongly recommend that everyone fasten their seatbelts, and they themselves flit about, as if they themselves, in case of anything, could, like a hummingbird, float in the air. Well, what about babies infected with AIDS? The meticulous reader will ask. Do they also radiate the energy of transition? First, here we see the epidemic as a trend. Second, I am not trying to prove that. They say there is no infection, but only the emission of mental energy at the frequency of the disease. Transurfing is not a dogma or the ultimate truth. No idea should be made absolute. You can only take note of patterns, and the truth is always somewhere nearby, but where exactly is unknown.